Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Volatility Box Report for October 4th, 2019. We are TOSindicators.com, home of the Volatility Box. For today's trading activity, we had fairly muted activity across the board outside of the crude oil futures. We sent out a note last night letting all of our users know at least that for the indices along with the bonds, we would be looking at the Conservative Volatility Box in anticipation of any additional volatility that we might face today, considering both it being a Friday along with the events that we had scheduled. We didn't see any of that volatility pan out. And so here we were in that better safe than sorry mode. Regardless, even with the aggressive volatility box, I'm not sure that there were any entries. We did, however, have one trade that set up in the crude oil futures, and that trade gave us both our T1 and our T2, so a winning percentage of 100 and a total P&L of positive 740, which helped us end our week up positive 2,190 bucks. And for those of you that remember, we started this week down, and then we ended up having some nice days yesterday and the day before, plus today's gain, which helped us close out the week on a winning note. All right, one thing that we're going to start to do in our videos, or at least try to remember to do, is take a look at the events that are on the schedule for the next day's trading activity, and we'll let you know which volatility box we plan to use in case that there's any scheduled events that we anticipate to have greater than usual volatility. So in today's video, we'll take a look at, say, Monday's trading, and we see here that there's absolutely no red folders, and that's what we're really looking for in terms of critical events that would help us need to change to the conservative volatility box ahead of time, despite that first hour check. And so we see that absolutely no event scheduled for Monday, but we'll continue to do this exercise each day. And so hopefully for our members, this gives you sort of an idea of what kind of volatility we're expecting around each of the events. And then we'll also just make note of the expectation numbers, the forecast. So at least when the numbers come out, we have some sort of context that we remember at least from the night before. And so we'll call that part of our preparation. All right, let's take a look at the crude oil chart. So here, we'll first start by talking about the volatility we faced in the markets early on as we had the NFP numbers come out. And so if we take a look at, say, the indices here, we'll see that we actually blew right past the aggressive volatility box. And I think even if we switch on over to the conservative volatility box, you can see that we ended up moving past and breaking through the conservative volatility box. And for members, you'll see this is something we're testing out this week. We are attempting to make a label that essentially lets you start to know at least the likelihood of a trending market. But anyway, so going back, we see that in the indices, we broke past the conservative volatility box clouds. And so if we just go through, NASDAQ, you'll see the same thing. If this was a little bit more contained compared to the S&P, or sorry, this is the Dow. And now let's go to the NASDAQ. Same thing. And so we saw that we started to breach into the conservative volatility box, but that was what was containing price action, letting us know that, okay, maybe that extra volatility that we anticipated was actually a good call for those of you that played the actual event. But now, if we move on to, say, crude oil, what we'll see is that price was actually really contained inside of the conservative volatility box. And even right here, if we switched on over to the aggressive volatility box, we see that price was starting to contain even this. And so using our first hour check, if we draw the line, we check to see whether or not we breached either side's aggressive volatility box. We use this as a reason to continue to look at crude on the more aggressive volatility box. As price continued to fall down, we had an opportunity to go long crude as price fell into our volatility box entry line. Our stop was outside of the volatility box. We gave it 30 cents of room, and that first target was hit right here. And our second target was at the target line, both of which were hit for a T1 and a T2. For those of you who may have had a tighter stop, so in this case, we were outside of the major mark 52, so we were at 95, so below it. But for those of you who wanted to front run it, you could have also, say, taken a 25-point risk where you had front run that number, thinking if for some reason you thought that we might pierce right past it, and you still ended up hitting your T1 right here, and then your second contract was a break even. But we decided to be on the other side of the number, learn from a mistake in the bonds yesterday, and use that to essentially play this trade. All right, and if we just come over to the S&P here real quick, and so this is what we were saying. So we played this event using the conservative volatility box, and so we had made sure to alert all of the members, and so you all knew ahead of time that which volatility box we were using. But here's sort of the reason why, right? And it's funny things happen on Friday. And so if you were using the aggressive volatility box today for some reason, you saw that this is where you would have had an entry, and your stop was outside of the volatility box, which was eventually hit, and you didn't really get any sort of follow through. And so while the conservative volatility box may not have given you any entries for today, it did keep you out of a stopped out trade. And really, that's how to be a little bit more cautious. That's why we sent out that note yesterday night, which hopefully helped prevent that loss if you faced it, unless you're a super scalper and you ended up just getting out that 1 or 2 points that it gave you. All right, so once again, we had only that one trade in Crude that set up today, which was a winner on both the T1 and T2 for a positive $740, helping us end the week up 2,190. So again, nothing to write home about, but after starting the week negative, we had a couple nice days to help us close out the week on a winning note, and that's a good start to the first week of October. We hope you all have a great weekend. We are working on that upcoming tutorial, so stay tuned for that. But otherwise, we hope you disconnect, get a chance to sort of rejuvenate. We hope this was a profitable week for you. If it was, go out and celebrate your profits, and then come back focused, ready to go for next week. All right, have a great weekend, everyone. Take care.